Okay.
We are not clinical counseling.
Yep.
We are not your EAP. We are not your self-help app, if you will, by design. And so in many ways, the way that I start is not telling people what Forte is. It's often just as helpful, if not more so, to tell them what it's not.
You're right. Welcome back to That's a Rep, and we are on site again in the podcast studio. This time we are talking to Dennis, and he's a good buddy of mine from work, and we're really excited. But here's something every trainer knows. There's a point in any program where the work stops feeling like effort and it starts feeling like your identity. You're not someone who just works out anymore. You're someone who's actually strong. Dennis is one of those people. He's a strong guy. I, on the other hand, need to work out more. And that shift doesn't happen in just a week, though. It rarely happens even in a month, but we want it to. Somewhere around that 90-day mark, which is when habits form, something clicks. And today we're pulling back the curtain on what that actually looks like. So our guest, Dennis, is Forte's customer success manager. He watches this transformation happen in real time across individuals and sometimes entire organizations. So Dennis, welcome to That's a Rep. And Dennis is the person members and organizations turn to when they want to know if any of this is actually working, which can be an intense role. As Forte's customer success manager, he sits at the intersection of data and human story, tracking outcomes, fielding feedback, and witnessing firsthand what consistent mental fitness training does to a person and a team over time. He's not a researcher in a lab. He's a human. He's here. He's on the ground. And that makes what he has to say about the 90-day mark both practical and personal. So Dennis, before we get to what changes, I want to start where most people actually start, where they're a little uncertain, maybe a little skeptical, probably not sure if they're doing mental fitness and Forte right. What does day one actually look like for most of the members and organizations you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. John, thanks for having me. Excited to be here on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think, there's a major misconception of what mental fitness is,
okay,
which is something that we're trying to help people understand at any given time.
Yeah.
Of what is mental fitness? And honestly, where I typically start is, what is mental fitness not?
Okay.
We are not clinical counseling.
Yep.
We are not your EAP. We are not your self-help app, if you will, by design. And so in many ways, the way that I start is not telling people what Forte is. It's often just as helpful, if not more so, to tell them what it's not.
Right.
And so then we can actually say, hey, let's demystify this a little bit for people. And so that's typically where I'm starting with different organizations that we work with, is by helping them understand what Forte isn't, what it is, and how their team can get involved.
Yeah.
And so, a launch, if you will look like people receiving an email, as simple as that,
Yep.
as well as communications internally and word of mouth as well. And so that's kind of what day one looks like, if you will, and then we kind of take it from there.
Yeah, and it's really important too that we have found, I help with the emails and the content and things like that, of the buy-in of the people who are buying this for their people. They truly genuinely care for their people, and they want them to be able to be mentally fit.
Yes.
And so we try to explain it to them, but we also say, hey, it would be great if you as the leader would tell your people, this is coming, and to be expecting it. And maybe you could do some sessions too, so you can speak to it.
Yes.
I think that's a really important element, is that buy-in from leaders.
It is. Yeah. Excuse me. The buy-in from leaders is the number one metric, if you will, of success of an organization, where it is, obviously, I'm the Forte guy.
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to say to use it. Of course you're going to say to use it. Our whole team is saying, use this.
Yeah.
Break our system, right? But at the end of the day, if my direct supervisor or my CEO, if they say to use Forte, that holds exponentially more weight than anything I will ever say.
Yeah.
And so I'm typically, one of the things that I often do is help senior leaders get engaged with our platform and with a coach, because if they experience it firsthand, personal story always wins
Yep.
at the end of the day. And if they can say, hey, I've benefited from this and you can as well, and there's not this disconnect of, oh, I'm a senior leader, this is only for senior leaders. You know, something we say here often is, this is for the CEO down to the custodian.
Yeah.
And we do not believe that there's any difference between those roles as it relates to mental fitness. Everyone can and should engage.
Yeah.
And if that's true, then it starts with leadership, people that are setting vision, setting direction, but it does not end there. That trickles down at the end of the day to the rest of the org. And so we're always trying to get senior leaders to buy into not just what we're doing, but what they want from their team. And oftentimes the overwhelming answer that I'm getting from people of, why did you engage with Forte? Why did you come to us wanting your people to be more mentally fit? And the overwhelming answer is, I care about my people.
Yep.
I do. But I can't do that at scale.
Yep.
I have whatever the number is, 10, 20, 30, 8,000 different people that I work with. I can't serve all those people individually. And we say, hey, we can, and we want to. And that's why they're coming to us in order to serve the rest of their team. And so it starts at the top, but it does not end there.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the different levels of how many people are into the different orgs that we have. And we have had a lot of organizations that have come through Forte. And I'm curious, some of them maybe haven't started the way we wanted to. Maybe there was a false start where maybe some of them like took off right away and then fell off, and we kind of started asking those questions of like, okay, what's going on here? Or others started slowly and started to take off. Can you speak to that a little bit as the guy who sees those numbers and I'm sure is sweating sometimes about those numbers? Can you speak to that for us?
Yeah. The overwhelming thing that I'm trying to always help organizations see and feel is that this will not happen overnight. It will not happen in 30 days. It will not happen in 60 days. It might not happen in 90 days. Now, some airbags around that. It will happen. At the end of the day, it takes time. And, the way that we like to think about mental fitness is it's the gym for your mind, right? And what we're trying to help people see is that just like physical fitness, it takes time. And so you think of, the new year. Signing up for the gym in January is easy. Getting to March is hard. We got, what do they call it? Quitting day in mid-January. Everyone's quitting their New Year's resolutions and different things like that. A 30-day push is not hard at all. It's the 60-day push. It's the 90-day push. It's the 120 days, right? And so I think there's a big misconception around this is going to happen instantaneously. And that is just the furthest thing from the truth. Where if I truly want to be physically fit, and therefore, and in relation to Forte, mentally fit, consistency beats intensity every single time. And so, having a long-term mindset of, hey, we want this to work, and we know it's going to take time. It's going to take time to catch. It's going to take time for people to understand it. The organizations that I work with that are understanding of that and not expecting this, in 2 weeks, we're going to have this massive change and all of our people are going to be, fixed, if you will. That is just not the case. It takes time. And that is okay. That rubs against our culture, right? And the instant gratification that we're wanting, where we're like, we want results. And of course we want results. That's not a bad thing. We're a results-oriented company, right? However, at the end of the day, we serve people, and people are really complex beings. And that being said, time is our friend. And again, consistency beats intensity every time.
It makes me think of the fact that both you and I are dads. We've got kids. And I was thinking, my kids are older. Yours is younger. Potty training is what came to my mind. I'm not saying
we're not there yet.
I'm not saying that we do that for your organization as Forte either. But what I am saying is I genuinely care for my kids, and you genuinely care for your kid. And once you get into that potty training, it can be like, why can't they just figure this out? It's so easy. Why can't? But there's a season and a process that they have to learn how to do this thing.
Yes.
And what was unique for me is I have 3 kids. Each of my kids had vastly different experiences with that.
Yeah.
So any culture, any family that you come into, and we're talking about organizations right now, they have people on extreme ends of the spectrum of how they're going to respond to mental fitness and the training and the coaching sessions and everything. There's going to be one person who's going to be like, oh, I totally get this. This is great. And I understand it right away.
Yeah.
Whereas someone else is going to take 3 sessions and a couple of the mental fitness exercises before they even start to grasp it.
Yes.
So there is that realization for anybody buying into Forte and mental fitness is like, hey, this is going to look different across the board.
Yeah.
And, if you launch a school system, depends on the district, depends on the school here, depends on the culture of what's happening here.
Yeah.
And in a church, it's the same way. That youth pastor might excel at this thing, but the worship pastor might be like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes from us, but also from the leadership we talk about. Again, even though you genuinely care, patience is key.
Yes.
But it's also a part of what I talked about with our coach success manager is sometimes you have to be patient and pause and reflect on what's actually happening and understand the story, not just the numbers, but the story of those being impacted.
Yes.
So that's huge for us too. Okay. So maybe you're 90 days in and some people have dropped off. That always is going to happen. Like you said, the January quit day after New Year's and things like that. So when you look at a member or an organization at the 90-day mark compared to day 1, what's the first thing that visibly changes? The thing that you could point to and say, there it is. That's the thing that we see over and over again, or is maybe there's one org that's different than another. What are some of those things that you notice?
Yeah, I think there's oftentimes, we see these reviews that people are submitting after a session with a coach, for example. And oftentimes around that 90-day mark, people start to get it. And when I say it, I feel like there is a shift between, again, like I've accomplished something as opposed to this is an ongoing rhythm that I'm developing. And you can see that based on the feedback that they're giving our coaches and submitting to us by their own accord. And the shift is this long-term shift that I think happens where they say, oh, this is a regular rhythm of something that I'm participating in rather than this, one-off type of thing that I'm doing, twice a year. Right. And you can see that. And I think the really cool feedback that, we get that is encouraging and again, I think a little bit of a signal is when people go, and again, they'll tell us this. They're like, I was skeptical of this at first. Really skeptical. Didn't really know, what's mental fitness? Right. What is this? Yeah. And that's really where we kind of fit in, where again, I talked about it's easier to explain what we're not than what we are because we're not in this bucket. We're not clinical counseling. We're not, these self-help apps. We're something that most people have not experienced. Where most people live their lives reactively. And when, people start to, if you will, grab the bull by the horns and go, I'm going to make some decisions. And I'm going to actually, be proactive with, maybe they're not burning out. Maybe they're in a great season of life. But they're saying, hey, I am looking to drive my life every day. And I want to make decisions that are going to impact my wife, my husband, my kids, the organization that I work with. And they start to say things like, oh, this is a regular rhythm again in my life. I feel like that's when I'm starting to see things are taking. And again, that takes time.
Yeah.
And that takes stories.
Yeah.
For people where, again, in 90 days, that's not just 1 or 2 sessions with a mental fitness coach. That's multiple sessions, which sometimes takes longer than 90 days.
Yeah.
So the 90 days is certainly the starting point. It is never the finish line.
Yeah. And we see it over and over again. You have to take the first step.
Yeah.
You have to do the work.
Yes.
To activate, first of all.
Yes.
And then to book a session and actually follow through on it. And kudos to those that have, because that's a big step for you. And we understand that. And I think a lot of the times we're kind of like, why aren't they doing these things? Well, that's a big step for anybody to be vulnerable enough to step into this and be like, this is the reality of my life.
That's right.
But the result of that is close to 1,800 reviews that we have, is a 4.8 to 4.9 out of 5 stars that we get.
Yeah.
Because once people experience it, like you said, they get it. And then it's kind of like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed this until I knew I needed it.
Right.
And you don't know it until you've experienced it.
Yeah.
And that's something we hear over and over again, regardless of org, is the people who step into it get it and they love it.
And many people, come being told by their employer, being told by us, this is something you should engage in.
Yeah.
And they go, I don't know what I would talk about. And, that's something that you and I have helped people see is like, hey, here's some questions to ask yourself and, to think. And sometimes, I've had people that have had a session and have talked to me and said, I had a session, I had no idea what to talk about.
Yeah.
And I had another session, still had no idea. And it took 3 or 4 sessions.
Yeah.
Again, it's a time game and it's a patience thing to go, oh, like, what do I want to talk about? Or again, people will say like, I have nothing coming up yet, And it's like, well, what's important to you? You have something that is driving you in some way, shape, or form. What is that thing? Well, let's talk about that. Let's start there and it'll trickle down. And so again, everyone has something that's, motivating them, something that they value, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that is a great starting place to get engaged with a coach.
Yeah.
And again, that is a starting place, not the finish line.
Yeah.
And again, time is key there.
Yeah, and I think some people probably assume because of the nature of mental health as a term, is that I have to come in with something that's bothering me.
Yeah.
That I'm struggling with, or I'm broken, or I'm burned out.
That's right.
Where it really could be like, I have a goal I'd like to meet, and I'm not really sure how to do that. I know it's a part of my values and who I am, but something feels out of alignment.
Yeah.
This is my direction, but I'm here for some reason.
Right.
So that's not really what we're here for, is to be reactionary and to help you pick things up when they're broken. We can do that.
Yeah.
But we're also here to help you be like, okay, this is your direction. You're out of alignment a little bit. What can you do? What can you recognize in your life that's going to start to steer you back?
Right.
And so you can achieve that goal and achieve that thing that's important and core to who you are.
Yeah.
And that comes through conversation and relationship.
It does. Yeah. I had a distant mentor that, alluded it to. Oftentimes what we're trying to do as it comes to the weight of life is just get things off of us so that we're not being weighed down.
Yeah.
And in many ways, what we're trying to do is we're going, hey, let us help you broaden your shoulders a little bit to carry whatever is been given to you in this season. And that is, there's consistencies or consistent things that will always be on your plate in one way or another. But there's also seasonality to things of maybe big projects or, what deadlines that you have to complete. And what we want to do is we want to come alongside the people that engage with Forte and say, hey, we are here to help strengthen your shoulders, if you will, so that you don't collapse under the pressure, whatever. And again, that pressure looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
For some people, they're like, work is not, work is the least of my problems.
Even though their work has provided this for them, that's not what they need to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah. But they're like, hey, I really, I have a 1-year-old at home, and I'm always asking this question of, how do I be a better dad?
Yeah.
it's like, how do I show up for my wife and for my son in the way that they need for me?
Yep.
And it's like, work is an element to that, but it is not the only thing that is, contributing to that thing. And that's a great place to start with a coach of like, how do I show up and love my wife and love my son the way that they need me to show up for them?
Yeah. And after talking with Richard, our coaches aren't going to give you that answer.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, here's the 3-step process to do that.
Right.
They're going to help you come to the realization of what you need to do by asking specific questions.
Yes.
So again, like, don't come into this of like, oh, they're going to fix everything for me.
Right.
That's not the job of a mental fitness coach.
Yeah.
It's to come alongside and help train you so that you can recognize those things in your own life.
Yeah.
Can you point me to a specific moment, a member moment that has stayed with you when you think about why you do this work? Because I think what's unique about Forte, our staff, we're bought into this thing. Like, we truly believe it. We've seen life change, and even in our own lives, we try to work the culture of mental fitness in our culture too. And we've talked about it, how much this job has meant to us and how it's helped us. But I'm curious if you've heard of some of the members, if there's stories where you're like, that's one that when I read that or I heard that, I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah. I'll look at this camera for this one. Every single number, if you will, that an organization is looking at as it relates to engagement and, well-being and productivity, whatever the different thing is, every single statistic that's out there has a person behind it. And I think that's really important to remember.
Yep.
In the work that we do,
Yep.
in the work that everyone does in one way or another, there's people that are impacted.
Yep.
And that is something that it can be missed at the pace of life that most of us are living, myself included.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm very cognizant of is, we're working with all of our different customers and we're trying to over deliver and serve them in the way that we know how and that we desire to serve them.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, one of my favorite parts of my job is the moments where I do take a step back and go, wow, the work that we're doing is making a real impact on somebody. And this isn't just, day-to-day work. It is meaningful things that are impacting somebody's every day. And there's a handful of stories. We just had a review that was submitted to us, and it just started with Forte is a lifeline for me. And again, we don't want to be reactive in that nature where they feel like they need to grab out for that lifeline. But it's more so like, hey, how do we stay tethered with that person? Yeah. So that when they're in the highs of life, we can stay with them. Yep. When they're in the lows of life, we're there for them too, right? And so being able to hear those stories of people saying things like, it is a lifeline for me. Other stories that I've heard are people sharing some of their biggest life moments. Yeah. First with their coach. Yeah. Because they just want to celebrate. Yeah. And we've heard stories like that as well. And I can think of countless stories of people who, 3 months prior to that would have never come close to Forte, wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole. Right. And next thing you know, their coach is this space for them where they can be honest and vulnerable. And that's the most consistent thing that I hear that most people don't have is a space where you can be 100% honest. Yep. And that is of so much value. Right. Where people don't have to hide. They can, come into the light, if you will, with a coach and be as vulnerable as they desire to be. Right. With no hiding or anything like that. And hearing the impact that has for somebody, the mental fogginess that I think people feel because they're always trying to, virtue signal in some way or put on a face. the fact that they can like strip all that off and not have to do that.
Yeah.
Hearing those stories is the reason I love coming to work every day.
Yeah.
Creating a space for people to have that.
Yeah. And on our drive to the office today, we started talking about the nature of specific jobs and how there are some jobs, whether that's ministry or teachers or whatever, the leader of that organization will say to you, I want you to come to me with anything. I want you to come to my office. I'm here. It's an open door.
Yeah.
Come tell me what's bothering you.
Yeah.
But the reality of that is you could be as genuine as possible and truly mean it, but your employees are still your employees. And even if you want them to be your best friend, what still goes on naturally in the back of somebody's mind is, what if they fire me? What if this is something that if I share it, it impacts me in a negative way, or they see me differently and I show up on Monday after I told them this on Friday, and now they have a different expectation of me. There's always those questions going on.
Right.
So we love the fact that you as an employer can still have that genuine care for your people and still say, hey, I want to be here. But if you don't feel comfortable, you should check out Forte because they've got some people who are not affiliated with us in any way, and they can help you process these things that you're going through, and it's not going to impact you. It's confidential, and it's something we want you to be able to process, because not only is that helpful for your employees, but it still puts you in a good light that you're doing your best for them, even if it's not in your office because they might be uncomfortable.
And my response to that is, number one, yes. Like I want to work for people. I want to work with people that are creating a space of honesty, transparency, and vulnerability. However, the question that I would pose to a leader that says that is, I would never challenge a leader that says that they're like that. I'm never going to be like, are you really, do you really mean that?
That's not true.
Yeah, that is never going to be the posture that I come in with. My thought process would be, if everyone that reported to you did that consistently, it would be everything you do.
Yep.
Like, if you have a 30-minute one-on-one weekly, and they did that with you, and let's say it's not even any like egregious thing, like they're not doing anything like horrible or anything like that. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, if they really laid on you everything that they're processing about work, life, family, health, if they really all did that to you, let's say you have 10 direct reports, that would be your entire job. Would be hearing those people. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and place for that. There certainly is. However, we want to go, hey, let us take that off of you. And again, you can have those conversations within your one-on-ones. But I think, and from personal experience, I've had leaders that have been wanting to, care for me. And I believe that. But at some point, there's also work to get done. And so it's like, let's say we had a 30, 45 minute one-on-one. It's like, at some point, 10 minutes in, we do need to transition to getting some stuff done.
Here's the to-do list.
At the end of the day. And that's always an awkward transition of like, I just shared something hard with you, and now we kind of have to make this like big emotional shift away from that. Not that that's not important, but there's also other things, and so my encouragement is thinking of scalability for your employees and your team, thinking about how you care for them at scale. I am not saying you shouldn't care for them. You should. And at the end of the day, you're the front line of care for your team. Like if the leader doesn't care, no one else does, right? However, if everyone did come to you, that's my question, would be, how does that scale? Can you manage that? Maybe not,
And the reality of most of the clients that we work with churches and education and everything, is a pastor, their job is not just to take care of their staff. That's an element, but it's also to shepherd their flock. It's to take care of those in the hospital and go visit people and have conversations and then get Sunday services ready. The same for a principal at a school. I have to take care of parents who are upset, or I have to take care of students. I have to think about the schedule. There's all of these things that happen. So as genuine as you want to be to say, I want to be able to talk to you about this. The other thing I was thinking about as you were talking was, do you have the capacity to remember those things that is so important to your staff when they come back 2 weeks later and they might still be struggling and they bring it up and you have no idea what they're talking about because you've been doing all of this stuff that's not just taking care of them. Whereas a coach, they know that person because they spent the time to talk to them. Maybe they wrote down like, hey, I want to remember this about this person. So that the next time we have this conversation, we can build on this. And that's the value of it. They're dedicated to that thing. They're trained in it. And we're not. We're all humans. We're fallible. Like we all make mistakes and we're not going to be able to measure up in those ways. And that's what we're here to do, is to help you be able to provide that for people. And the proof of Forte lives in the stories, which we hear over and over again.
Yes.
And so before we close, if you could give one piece of advice to someone that would dramatically increase their odds of still being in this mental fitness thing at day 90, what's the encouragement you'd give to an organization or an individual who's thinking about mental fitness or is in it right now? What would you encourage them with?
Begin with the end in mind, which is, hey, we want to show our staff that we care. And we want to tell our employees, hey, this is something that we are resourcing you with because we care about you. And that announcement that happens on day one of a launch cannot be the one and only time. That is a consistent drip over not just year one, but like we have customers that are, 4.5 years into this thing with us since the, beginning of our organization. And they're still doing this. And many of the employees were there when they launched with them and they're still putting it in front of their people. I heard this illustration the other day, but you think about the Artemis that just went out into outer space. It takes a swimming pool of fuel in order to get that thing into orbit. And it's a lot of work in order to launch Forte with your staff of like, there's, emails that we're sending out. There's messaging that we're going, hey, you should send this out. We're asking you, put up some flyers and it takes some work to get this thing up. But what most people don't know is that with the Artemis, when it's out into space, it runs on what my Mazda CX-5 is running on. It's like a very normal amount of fuel. And so when I think of these, organizations that do this for a long period of time, it's, hey, there's a big push at the beginning. You got the swimming pool full of fuel. And then it's just a consistent dripping of letting them know, hey, this is here for you. Not when things break down. But before that, And so I think the organizations that are crushing it just begin knowing we will not arrive. Beginning with the end in mind might be that even that analogy breaks down because we don't believe there's an end. Right? It's like you could be crushing life 11 out of 10 and Forte is still something that you can and should engage with. And so I think it's the people that have this, the first 30 days will not be the only determining factor, right? It's like, and this is something that I'm working with customers all the time with is, hey, you're 2 years in. How do we relaunch you? How do we put another swimming pool full of fuel into your organization so that we're in the people business. And your people have a lot going on. I just looked in the last 3 hours, I've gotten 37 emails. Like that is what the chaos of my inbox looks like. And all of the people that we serve and all of the people that are listening to this are in the same boat. That's not unique to me. And so 1 or 2 emails is not going to be it. It is going to be consistency and wanting to know, hey, over time, this is available to you. You can and should use it.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, it's there for you.
Yep.
It's there at any given time. And so I think it's the people that make it, if you will. We don't believe there's an end, but the people that just consistently understand it is, this isn't if my people are going to use it or not.
Yeah.
It's I have this for my team because I love them, I care for them, and at the end of the day, the work that they're doing is so meaningful and it carries a weight. And I want them to know that if it's not me that's there for them, someone's there for them.
Yeah. And that makes a huge difference to know that you have that support. So I appreciate you saying that and your time with us today.
Yeah.
We always end our episodes with a rep. So we're going to do that right now. So this week, your rep is a 90-day check-in, just like we were talking about, but on yourself. So find 5 quiet minutes, and I want you to write down 3 things. So number 1, where were you mentally 3 months ago, 90 days ago? Think back to then. Where were you mentally? Now, where are you now? Okay, so compare those two. And then one specific moment where you noticed you handled something differently than you would have before. So if you're just starting out, write down where you want to be in 90 days. So if you haven't done that or you can't think back to that, maybe write down now, where do I want to be in 90 days? And then in 90 days, reflect back on that as well. So what does stronger look like for you? That's your North Star. So 1 page, 5 minutes. That's your rep this week. Dennis, thank you for bringing the receipts, the data of everything here, the stories, and the reminder that this work is real. It's measurable and it matters. And it's about the story. It's about the life change.
Yep.
So if you're listening and you're somewhere in the first 90 days, keep going. That signal that time for you is coming. And if you're not, check out getforte.com. We would love to have you sign up with us, sign up your organization, and change lives, because it really does. And we'll see you next time on That's a Rep. Thanks, everybody.